You're listening to The Sizzle on Iron Skillet Radio and Iron Skillet Television.
Chet Holmgren has torn ligaments in his foot and will miss the entire NBA season. People immediately tweeted that he is a bust because this was the issue. Dude is 7 feet tall and just 190 pounds? How will his body hold up against NBA competition? Not great, apparently, because LeBron didn't even break a sweat to alter the kid's career. But people calling him a bust need to slow down. This is the exact kind of toxic hot take I thought we would get right when I saw this news. People love to kick players when they're down and say, I told you so, but you don't know. Plenty of big men have missed their first season and had great careers. Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, even LaMarcus Aldridge had issues early, became a 7-time All-Star. But those haters do have a point. This is a horrible sign considering the history of big men with foot injuries. Chet was the number 2 pick because he combines freakish size and skill. The best defender in years because of a 7'6" wingspan with elite anticipation and instincts. He can shoot, he can dribble, he can pass in open space like a guard. Elite in Summer League with 23 points and 6 blocks in his debut. But the Magic chose to pass on him at number 1 because of concerns about his body. All it took was one LeBron drive to end his season. Ralph Sampson and Greg Oden are 2 famous examples of talented 7-footers whose careers were ruined by injuries, but those were knee injuries. I found something really interesting specific to Chet while researching this. A doctor for the Houston Rockets named William McGarvey saw one of the best big men fall apart. Yao Ming was as dominant as it gets and could have been an all-time great, but injured his foot in his prime. Bill Walton was another all-timer whose injury started at his feet. 7'4" Rick Smits had serious nerve damage in his feet. 7'3" Zydrunas Ilgauskas played 29 games in 3 seasons because of foot problems, and the tallest player ever, George Murasan, at 7'7", missed 2 seasons and then retired. And what all those players have in common? They were over 7 foot tall and not black. The doctor told the Wall Street Journal, the shape of players' feet plays a role. Black players are more likely to have lower arched feet, which better absorb the stress of basketball. Injuries are more common in tall players with cavus or high arched feet, a shape more prevalent in people of Caucasian and Asian descent. I had no idea, but is it possible the Magic knew this all along and decided Chet wasn't worth the risk? I know a lot of people will say this injury could have happened to anyone, but the Magic look like they were smart to pick Paolo. When you watch the actual play, it doesn't look unusual. I mean, LeBron doesn't step on him or get tangled up. Chet is just backpedaling like normal, trying to guard, which he did, by the way. The difference is LeBron is a friggin' freight train. This isn't guarding like kids in college. LeBron is bigger and more athletic than anyone Chet has ever guarded. And you also don't see Chet slip. The crossover tournament was hosted in Seattle and had to be shut down because of a slippery court. It was extra humid that day in Seattle, and Jamal Crawford ended it because of player safety. OKC fans will say it was a fluke injury and that Chet slipped, but you can't see that in the video. They will also say, why was he even playing? It is stupid for these players to risk injury in some random summer game. Well, you can actually thank Michael Jordan for this injury. When MJ was drafted in 1984, he wanted to play basketball wherever and whenever he chose. So he forced the Bulls to put a love of the game clause in his contract. Now that clause is used for almost every single player. In the CBA, there's a list of allowed and not allowed activities. Now, I'm not gonna read them all. You can look at them here on the screen. It is a ton. It's funny how specific they are. Not allowed includes like skydiving, jumping on a trampoline, or using fireworks. Allowed activities include safe sports like golf, swimming, but basketball is allowed when the player signs his contract. It says the player is allowed to participate in off-season basketball games and basketball pickup games which do not unreasonably endanger the player's health or safety. So it sucks, but this is how the NBA has done it since Michael Jordan entered the game. What Chet should have done is backed down and just let LeBron score like an all-star game. These players are capable of playing safely. But who's in the all-star game? Veterans, because they know what to do. Rookies are out there playing NBA players for the first time. It's really exciting. They want to prove something. I totally disagree that teams should kill the love of the game clause. They just need to tell these rookies to be smart if you're gonna participate. The best case scenario for Chet now is that he comes back like Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons, and this was just a minor speed bump in his career. I was so excited to see him on the court because of how special he looked in Summer League, obviously because of how much of a freak he is, and his attitude. It is super rare to see 7-footers with this kind of passion. A lot of those guys get into the league because they're 7 feet tall. And normally that kind of passion is in guys who are like 6'1" or 6'2", who had to like work their butt off to get in the league. Chet had both. The worst case scenario is he never stops getting injured, like Kristaps Porzingis. And we all wonder, what if he was ever healthy? But now the Thunder have a choice to make. Do they win as many games as possible with all their young talent like Josh Giddey, plus Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, or do they tank for Victor Wembanyama? I thought tanking was out of the question for them once they drafted Chet. It was finally time to push for the play-in tournament, but imagine how good they would be with a future Big Four of Chet, Giddey, SGA, and Wembanyama.
The breaking news from the NBA is not good. It's bad news out of Oklahoma City. Thunder rookie Chet Holmgren will miss the entire upcoming season because of a Lisfranc injury to his right foot. The number 2 overall pick in June's draft suffered the injury Saturday. It's right here during a Pro-Am game in Seattle while defending LeBron James on the fast break, and you see it once again there. The game was canceled actually in the second quarter because of the condition on the court. It was humid, so there were wet spots and condensation. And now it's proven to be a very costly Pro-Am game that Chet Holmgren played in. There have been some notable top 5 picks who have missed their first season in the NBA recently, including a few big men in Joel Embiid, of course, Blake Griffin, Greg Oden. We all know how that went down in Portland. And then what about Ben Simmons and Blake Griffin? They went on to win Rookie of the Year in the following season. We know Embiid has now turned into one of the best players in the entire association, regardless of position. Let's bring our injury expert, Stefania Bell, in to talk us through it, walk us through it, because the Lisfranc is something that I feel like people don't really know that much about, maybe just because of the name, Stefania. How is it treated, and then what does the recovery from it potentially look like?
So it's named after a significant ligament in the middle of your foot, and when it's disrupted, it creates instability in the foot, and that's why you need to get it fixed. So surgical repair is what will happen, and then it's a lengthy recovery. You know, it can be 4 to 6 months to get all the way back from it. But the good news is once it's repaired and once you get reconditioned and readapt to the sport, you should be fine going forward. There should not be any lingering issues for him. We don't hear about it as much in basketball. We hear about it much more in football. Just to give you an example, Travis Etienne, star running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars, missed the entire season last year because he too had an injury before the season started. But he's back and looking great in training camp and ready to go. So Chet Holmgren can take a look at the NFL and be encouraged about some of the guys who've come back from this.
Yeah, because quite often when you think of foot injuries, and especially maybe like a plantar fasciitis or something, where that could really continue to hamper somebody throughout their entire careers. But this is different. So surgery recommended usually right away. And then what, as far as waiting to really get going again?
Yeah, well, the rehab is very boring. I mean, again, to borrow from Travis Etienne, he told me he was the marble pickup king when he rehabbed, because you're basically using your toes to curl. You do towel curls, you work in sand, you're doing all kinds of things to strengthen the tiny muscles of your foot, which is critical to getting back to the more fun things like running and shooting a basketball.
Okay, I want video of the marble picking upping.
Yeah, I can teach you that when we get out of here.
Yeah, when we're not on camera, maybe. Stefania Bell, thank you for the latest on what it's going to take for Chet Holmgren to get back, but it's going to be, again, an entire year. He is missing the entire upcoming NBA season. Thank you.